Probably the easiest way to summarize the use of our annotative scales and the tools that we have available for them is to look at their application. Here we're back looking at this floor plan that did not use annotative scaling with its dimensions. Notice that when I go on top, I don't see my little annotative scale icon showing up. So how would I apply annotative scaling to this already completed drawing? First, I would go to my dimension palette and work with my dimension style. In my dimension style manager, I'm using this dimension style called Arch. I'm going to modify that dimension style. Under Fit, I'm going to change from using an overall scale factor to annotative. Say OK and close. Now I need to update the dimensions on my drawing. So I'm going to use the Update tool on my Dimension toolbar, choose all of the dimensions in the floor plan, and hit Enter. Probably the first thing you notice is it looks like all of my dimensions have disappeared. And that's because I'm using a one-to-one scale, and it makes them very, very small. I have not added any scales other than one-to-one to my scale list. So at this point, I need to add some scales. I'm going to my Add Delete Scales. Again, I'm going to choose all of the dimensions in my drawing and hit Enter. You can see that 1-to-1 is the only scale I have, so I'm going to add some additional scales. This is architectural, and I want it to be able to display in 1/4 inch equals a foot. And I'll hold down the Shift button, and I also want to get ½ inch and 3/4, and I'll throw 3/8 in there too. So I'll say OK. Now I really didn't want the 3/8, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And I'm going to delete the 1-to-1. I'll say OK. And now you see that it all comes back, and I can see those again. If I go down here to the status bar and I go to my annotation scale and I turn my scale to 1/4 inch equals a foot, which is my default, then it stays the same. If I want to change this to ½ inch equals a foot, you notice that they get smaller. And you already know that there is an actual dimension. I'm just turning on and off the visibility. There is a dimension represented by each one of these scales. I'm going to set it back to 1/4 inch equals a foot. Now when I go to my layout, here I have my scale set. I'm going to click on this viewport, and the scale is set for 1/4 inch equals a foot. In zooming in on this next viewport, I'm going to click on that, and down here on the status bar it tells me that my viewport scale is ½ inch equals a foot. And even though my objects are scaled to be larger, you notice that the size of the text is consistent from viewport to viewport. If I were to change this from ½ to 3/4 inch equals a foot, my objects become even larger, but my text of my dimensions and my dimension objects all remain the same size. If I wanted to add another scale, coming down here to this viewport, click on this. This is set for 3/4 inch equals a foot, and it too has consistent size for all of my dimensions because of the annotative scale I have added. If I wanted to add an additional scale that I could use in this viewport, I could click on my automatically add scales, click on the viewport where I want to use this, and then I'm going to choose 1 inch equals 1 foot. And now you'll notice that even though my scale has increased, so all of my objects have gotten larger, my dimensions have remained consistent. In addition to my status bar tools that I have for working with my annotation scales, if I go into the viewport, I'm going to double click, and I click on the annotation. If I right click on my shortcut menu, you can see that I have Add Current Scale, Delete Current Scale, Add and Delete Scales, or Synchronize my multi-scale positions as shortcuts on my right-click menu. This operates in model space when I click on an annotative object. Because your viewport scale and your annotation scale are tied together, if you choose a scale that's not on your annotation scale list, you notice that the dimension disappears. So there's not one there to view. So you want to be careful when you're scaling each of your viewports that you're using a scale that's on the list and will show the dimensions or other annotative objects that you have scaled.